We are looking at the abdominal phase of a combined anterior-posterior rectal resection. The primary challenge of this procedure is strictly spatial. To reach the rectum, surgeons must descend into the true pelvis, a narrow, bony funnel densely packed with critical anatomy. Operating in this constrained space creates an immediate tension. The goal is to achieve aggressive oncological clearance by removing compromised vessels and nodes while meticulously preserving the delicate urogenital infrastructure sitting just millimeters away. This diagram shows a 3D wireframe of the pelvic cavity. To safely extract the targeted tissue, the overarching objective is complete 360-degree spatial isolation of the rectum. We achieve this isolation through a strict sequence: securing surface access, gaining superior vascular control, executing multiplanar mobilization of the surrounding ligaments, and finally, dividing the distal base. Success in a rectal resection requires mastering this specific spatial logic before a single cut is made deep within the pelvis. The geometry of the procedure begins with patient positioning. The patient is placed in the lithotomy tredelenburg position, with the operating table's foot removed so the buttock sits exactly at the table's edge. Here is a schematic showing the precise setup. Lloyd Davies leg rests flex the hips to 30 degrees and knees to 45 degrees. The tredelenburg tilt offers a mechanical advantage. Gravity pulls the small intestine upward, naturally clearing the pelvic basin for operation. With the basin cleared, access begins with a long right paramedian incision, running from the umbilicus down to 2 centimeters below the pubic crest. The remaining coils of the small intestine are manually packed off into the upper abdomen, securing the clearance created by the table's tilt. The left wall of the wound is then retracted. Surgeons initiate mobilization by dividing the adhesions connecting the sigmoid colon to the posterior abdominal wall. This sequence highlights a practical reality. The patient's physical setup artificially engineers the spatial clearance required for the deep pelvic dissection to follow. Next, the descending colon is identified and pulled firmly to the right, fully exposing its lateral border. The peritoneum is incised along this exposed border, moving continuously from the splenic flexure down to the sigmoid colon. During this downward incision, the surgeon must explicitly identify and protect the left ureter and the left gonadal vessels lying directly beneath. This exposes the surgical field for the primary oncological decision of the abdominal phase, determining exactly where to ligate the inferior mesenteric artery, or IMA. The ligation level is dictated entirely by evaluating lymph nodes clustered along the inferior mesenteric artery. If clear, the IMA is ligatured just below its first branch, preserving upper blood flow. If involved, the artery must be tied flush with the aorta. From this point of vascular division, the peritoneal incision is carried vertically downward to reach the right side of the rectum. This line is then extended forward over the front of the rectum, meeting the earlier incision on the left side to complete the initial circumference. The precise level chosen for the IMA ligation dictates the balance of the entire procedure, calibrating the preservation of colonic blood flow against the necessity of maximum oncological clearance. With vascular control established, focus shifts to the posterior dissection plane. The rectum is physically lifted forward away from the front of the sacrum. Using gentle, blunt finger dissection, the rectum is gradually freed posteriorly, sliding down the hollow of the sacrum until it reaches the sacrococcygeal joint.
This specific joint serves as a rendezvous point. The abdominal surgeon works downward to meet the perineal operator, who is simultaneously working upward from below, having already excised the last piece of the coccyx. During this posterior sweep, the fascia of Waldeyer is carefully incised, keeping the cut slightly distanced from the rectal wall. Attention then shifts to the anterior plane. The rectum is pushed backward into the newly empty hollow of the sacrum to expose the front structures. The objective here is strictly defined, locating the exact plane of cleavage that lies between the rectum and the base of the bladder. In male patients, the rectum must be meticulously separated from the seminal vesicles and prostate. Extreme care is required to identify the vas deferens and maintain a precise dissection boundary. In females, the cleavage plane safely separates the rectum from the posterior vaginal wall. Navigating these planes requires the surgeon to ride a millimeter-thin boundary, separating the diseased bowel without inflicting permanent damage to the surrounding urogenital structures. Once the anterior and posterior planes are freed, the rectum is tethered to the pelvis solely by its lateral ligaments. Before any lateral division begins, surgeons must absolutely define the lower ends of both ureters and confirm their position relative to the ligaments. Surgeons rely on traction and countertraction. The rectum is drawn forcefully to one side, placing the opposite lateral ligament under heavy stretch. With the tissue pulled taut, the ligament is secured and divided. Throughout this cut, the corresponding ureter is kept in direct, continuous view. This exact maneuver is then mirrored on the opposite side. The rectum is now fully mobilized, triggering the division phase. The surgeon assesses where to divide the colon by observing the visually obvious ischemic areas created by the earlier ligation. The bowel is physically divided by placing it between heavy crushing clamps, cleanly severing the devascularized tissue. The divided distal end is immediately covered with a sterile glove, ensuring the tissue can be extracted cleanly through the perineal wound below. Severing those final lateral tethers and capping the distal end completely unmoors the specimen. Its anatomical relationship with the abdominal cavity is officially severed. The procedure then transitions to the handoff. The entire freed mass of the rectum and colon is passed downward, where the second surgical team extracts it entirely through the perineal wound. Back up top, the abdominal surgeon is left looking at an empty pelvic basin, with the underlying pelvic floor muscles fully exposed. The final step is the reconstruction of the pelvic floor to permanently seal off the abdominal cavity from the perineum. The raw edges of the remaining peritoneum are picked up, mobilized, and carefully aligned. This schematic illustrates the closure. The peritoneal gap is sutured using individual sutures or a continuous catgut suture pulling the tissue together like a zipper. Final confirmation is mandatory, ensuring both ureters remain intact and protected beneath this new seam. The success of the abdominal phase relies on two distinct pillars: decisive proximal vascular control at the main artery and rigorous multiplanar dissection around the pelvic anatomy. By systematically clearing the surrounding architecture plane by plane, this methodical spatial isolation safely transforms a complex abdominal resection into a highly controlled perineal extraction. In an abdominoperineal resection, the perineal phase is where we safely detach and extract a tumor from the lower pelvis. Before making the first cut down below, we have to confirm a strict starting condition. The abdominal surgical team above must have entirely completed their internal exploration and mobilization of the colon. With the abdominal work verified, the perineal surgeon takes their position, seated squarely at the end of the operating table. This phase requires operating in a highly confined space. The surgeon must carefully navigate past delicate, often obscured anatomical structures to free the lower bowel intact. To prevent field contamination during the dissection, a dry swab is inserted into the anal orifice. Notice in this cross-section how a stout purse string suture is introduced around the perimeter, cinching the anus closed. Next, the surgeon traces an elliptical incision around it, extending deliberately back to the middle of the sacrum. The surgeon deepens this posterior section until the scalpel reaches bone. Here, the coccyx is cleared from its attachments on both sides and cleanly disarticulated from the sacrum. Look at this anatomical map. At the disarticulation point lies the middle sacral artery, a high-risk zone requiring immediate ligation if injured. Once secured, the fascia of Waldeyer is incised. The surgeon inserts a finger through this opening, guiding them to the levator ani muscles. Navigating this posterior entry safely gives the surgeon the correct depth plane required to safely execute the rest of the procedure. Now that the posterior depth is set, attention shifts to the lateral sides of the anal canal. The goal here is to widen the resection margins. In this cross-section, watch as superficial fat layers are stripped away. Deepening the lateral incisions exposes the underlying cavities known as the ischiorectal fossae. Crossing these perpendicularly are the inferior rectal vessels, representing a major vascular threat. The surgical team must carefully isolate and secure these specific vessels before cutting any deeper into the lateral tissues. Meticulous lateral vascular control keeps the field clear of hemorrhage. A bloodless field is an absolute requirement for the highly delicate anterior dissection that comes next. Moving to the front of the resection, the surgeon insinuates a finger on the upper surface of the levator ani muscle to act as a physical barrier. Using scissors, they divide the muscle on both sides. The guiding finger shields the deep tissues, ensuring a sufficient margin remains attached to the rectum. The incision is deepened anteriorly, dividing the superficial and deep transverse perineal muscles, followed by the puba rectalis. This sequence exposes the most critical danger zone, the urethral bulb, sitting immediately adjacent to the resection plane. To protect it, the surgeon uses blunt gauze dissection, gently pushing the bulb forward and entirely out of the danger zone. The surgeon must clearly define the borders of the prostate gland before initiating further cuts. Once the prostate is clear, the recto-urethralis muscle, tethering the rectum to the urethra, is severed, safely detaching the rectum anteriorly. Freeing the rectum while preserving the entire urethroprostatic complex marks the completion of the anterior dissection. Now, the perineal and abdominal dissection planes meet. The tissues part, uniting the two working fields and creating a continuous open pathway through the pelvis. The entire intact specimen, comprising the anal canal, rectum, and lower colon, is carefully drawn downward and delivered out through the perineal wound. With the specimen removed, the surgeon inspects the newly emptied pelvic cavity, ligating any remaining vessels to ensure absolute hemostasis. Looking at this cross-section of the empty cavity, the surgeon places deep suction drainage. If localized oozing persists, a corrugated rubber sheet drain is added alongside it to ensure cellular debris has a clear exit path. Seamless extraction combined with rigorous multi-level drainage mechanics prevents dead space hematomas and guarantees a clean environment for tissue repair. With the perineal wound securely closed and the abdominal colostomy fashioned above, the surgical operation is complete. Immediate postoperative care requires raising the foot of the patient's bed. This mechanical adjustment safely relieves resting pressure on the newly reconstructed fragile pelvic floor. This timeline charts the staggered removal of the hardware. The corrugated rubber drain is pulled after 48 hours. The section drainage is continued for another 1 to 2 days, and the urethral catheter remains in place for exactly 5 days.
The perineal wound itself heals from the inside out via granulation tissue. The pelvic floor slowly fills in over a minimum of 4 weeks. By strictly adhering to these precise anatomical landmarks and managed postoperative timelines, surgeons can remove extensive lower pelvic cancers while ensuring a highly controlled, survivable recovery.
If you found this video informative, please like and share, comment what you would like to see next, and subscribe to the channel to get notified about future informative videos.